Hi, I'm Tim. Welcome to Watch You Want, and thanks for logging on. Today we're looking at the Jaeger-LeCoultre Master Compressor Diving Chronograph GMT US Navy SEALs. Now that's a mouthful, but this watch has one heck of a backstory and fantastic manufacturer content that even at 46 millimeters in brushed titanium, I'm confident JLC even had trouble packing as much content as they did into this special watch. Now you can see on my wrist, the Master Compressor Diving Chronograph US Navy SEALs sits big, it sits bold, 16 millimeters thick, over 51 millimeters from lug to lug. Nevertheless, it sits securely and comfortably, and I have a big Master Compressor Extreme World Alarm that's almost exactly the same size, also in titanium, and I can attest to JLC's mastery of ergonomics. The key to making this watch fit on a wrist as small as mine, again 6 1/3 inches, 16 centimeters in circumference, is best viewed from this angle. Here's the secret. The lugs are exceptionally short. Now you can see on the right side of the camera, the lugs barely protrude beyond the case. So if the case is 46, the lugs are only about 51 lug to lug. It doesn't span far beyond the case. In traditional big watch, tool watch, utility watch fashion, the manufacturer understands that it still has to fit a normal human wrist. And in fact, the Navy SEALs were particular about the watches fitting them, to the point that they even requested a special 42 millimeter watch be made for them. So rest assured, having been tested by the SEALs, this watch is almost like a second skin, delightfully light on the wrist. Make no mistake, it will not clear a dress cuff. It will not wear like a Patek Philippe Calatrava or even one of JLC's own ultra-thin references. A long sleeve, a tight cuff will never ride up over this tuna can of a case. But in terms of comfort, JLC aced the test. Now, the compressor crowns are distinctive of the case, but they're also completely unobtrusive. Even if I pronate my wrist, if I hyperextend it backwards as far as I can, there's nothing I can do to get these crowns to interfere with my skin or the motion of my wrist. So ergonomically, they're distinctive, and they're also unobtrusive. But the bottom line is that the bracelet is a big part of the triumph of this watch's ergonomics. Metallic but rubber coated, so it's rubber over metal. It's very flexible and very supple. As good as a well-finished metal bracelet can be, it can't match one that's been coated with vulcanized rubber. And these watches, having been out since 2009, in fact the bracelet itself having been out on the Master Compressor diving model since 2006, I've seen a lot of them and they wear very, very well over time. That would be my main concern with this type of treatment, durability, and perhaps from, I would say, a less skilled, less experienced, less venerable manufacturer than JLC, perhaps a company that outsources this sort of thing, I wouldn't have trusted the concept. But JLC builds their own bracelets, their own cases, their own movement, their own clasps. They are a true manufacturer, and they don't take half measures, especially on a watch named after the uncompromising US Navy SEALs. And an outstanding bracelet deserves an outstanding clasp, and here you see the double deployant twin trigger actuated clasp that's included with this model. Now, I like twin triggers, but to have 4 for a total of 2 twin trigger releases, that's about as secure as it gets. Now, pushing down a single trigger will not release either side. You have to squeeze both triggers on both sides, and this milled out clasp opens up. It feels incredibly solid. There's beautiful beveling even inside the links themselves. The swing arms of these linking elements are beautifully finished. No attention to detail is spared, even at the level of interior components of the clasp. And of course, there's the US Navy SEAL insignia, the eagle holding a trident with an anchor and a pistol. This is one of 1,500 made, and there is individual numbering on the case back. I want to show this case back because although it is solid, there's a lot that's interesting here. It testifies as to the watch's 100 bar water resistance, so you have 1,000 meters of hermeticity and rated diving depth. You have the insignia of the Jaeger-LeCoultre Master Control 1,000 hour test, a fully cased up chronometry test that JLC has developed and implemented on all models but the caliber 101 in-house. 1,000 hours continuous testing, shocks, magnetism, temperature variations, dynamic winding, static winding, power reserve, and of course, precision. This was really the beginning of the move beyond the bare minimum of COSC in Swiss high horology, and JLC owns that. And of course, you have the insignia of the Navy SEALs, to emphasize the Navy SEALs connection with individual numbering just above it. Now the dial is the centerpiece. As cool as the caseback is, as well done as the bracelet is, the dial is the centerpiece, and it starts outboard with a bezel crafted of a ceramic insert, so essentially indelible, scratch-proof. This is never going to have the beat-up taxi fender look that you may associate with older aluminum bezel inserts on traditional Rolex, Omega, or Breitling diving references. This is incredibly sturdy, and the bezel rotates with a nice solid ratchet and a gratifying audible report. You can feel it through your fingertips and you can hear it in your ears. Well done, JLC. Moving inboard, you see a fully calibrated minute track around the periphery. There is an in-house chronograph caliber, and I'll get to that in a moment, but I want to call out the different textures. Now, the rehaut, the chapter ring with the minute track, is slightly concave, so it swoops down to a dial that has almost a grained eggshell texture around the hour track. Each of the individual indices, as well as the Arabic numerals at 6 and 12, are extensively loomed. This watch glows like a torch at night. It's also beautifully visible in the day. There's a tremendous sense of utility here, even though it's finely finished, even though it's clearly more than any frogman, combat diver, or special forces operative would ever need. It's still a luxury product, and it's finished accordingly. But make no mistake, you get a lot more than good looks on this dial. You get a chronograph, you get a second time zone, you get a constant seconds indicator. This little bicolored disc at 6 o'clock slowly rotates to comply with ISO 6425, the universal, internationally accepted definition of a dive watch. You have to have a seconds indicator that is always moving. And of course, if you were to stop the chronograph, you wouldn't have constant seconds on the center hand. But the indicator at 6 continues to move, and that's how JLC expresses that, reasoning that a bicolored disc would be easier to read instantly as a moving object than a small subdial with a moving baton. And I think they got that right. I think in terms of ease, I think in terms of legibility, I think it's more intuitive. That's a good idea. It's also visually distinct. Now the chronograph is a tri-register system, hours, minutes, and seconds. But there's a wrinkle here because there's a GMT as well, and the GMT reference time zone features a unique AM/PM indicator right up here at 12 o'clock. That's actually what that little dot is. It's an AM/PM indicator that tells you whether or not it is, for instance, 5 p.m. or 5 a.m. where the watch is, where the reference time is pointing. Now you can see that that skeletonized reference time is pointing at the 5, and that the red on the indicator is just beginning to eclipse the white portion. So the red being darker, you're heading into the PM portion of the day. So there's your AM/PM indicator up at 12 o'clock, and there is your reference time hour hand down here at 5. And the nice thing is you can superimpose the local hour hand over that reference hand to turn it into a conventional center hours and minutes and clean up the dial so it's even more simple, legible, readily readable if you need it to be. Date right here at 4:30, and of course the watch features JLC's in-house manufacture, a 750 series chronograph movement, 65-hour power reserve, lubrication-free, high-efficiency ceramic ball bearings, what are known as spire-cut gears. So a very high-efficiency gear train design that JLC helped to develop with a premier group of Swiss watchmakers, also including Patek Philippe, also including Vacheron Constantin. The bottom line is that there's a tremendous amount of manufacturer savoir-faire in here. Vertical clutch for smooth engagement, precise resetting, column wheel for that crisp start and stop feel that you get from a traditional chronograph architecture. It's also very tough, with a laser welded hairspring at the stud and the collet and a free sprung escapement. This is JLC at its manufacturer best. In-house movement, JLC's own case, JLC's own bracelet and clasp, and with the compressor keys, JLC's own sealing arrangement. Now you can see white, color keyed, white you're tight, 1/2 turn, red. I like to say red you're dead, that's how you know to seal it before you go in the water. But the reality is with this little wing, and it's featured on both of the chronograph pushers, you know instantly if it's open, but you also have the convenience of opening and closing it without having to worry about fumbling with a tight screw-down crown when your hands are wet, when you're wearing gloves, when it's sweaty. That's the kind of thing that's useful whether you're a Navy SEAL or just jumping in the pool. The bottom line is that this Jaeger-LeCoultre Master Compressor Diving Chronograph GMT Navy SEALs is more than a unique limited edition, and it's more than a novel Navy SEAL association. While the co-branding is interesting, what ultimately makes this piece desirable is just the feature content, the ergonomics, the ultra-high quality Cadillac-like fit, feel, and finish. It's solid on the wrist, but because it's titanium, it doesn't have overpowering, uncomfortable mass to it. It's a gentle giant. And with a manufacture movement, a scratch-free ceramic bezel, virtually scratch-proof ceramic bezel, the convenience of the half-turn compressor crowns, a chronograph, a date, a second time zone, an AM/PM indicator, you're getting an awful lot here, which is why I opened by saying, despite the 46mm case, this Master Compressor Diving Chronograph GMT Navy SEALs can barely fit all of the original contents, features, and manufacturer ingenuity that Jaeger-LeCoultre has put into it. If you're looking for a dive watch that really does it all, and in style, with a cool backstory, this Master Compressor Diving Chronograph GMT Navy SEALs may just be the watch you want.